Hello everyone, my name is Rob, welcome to Kinetic Rugby League. In this video I'll be giving you my NRL Round 9 predictions. So I'll leave last week's recap up on the screen for you now, and I will say I'm very happy with it. You know, still not perfect, but pretty good. I will take it, I'm happy with that. But I think there's some definitely interesting games this week, but we'll crack on with the first game and see if we can get that very elusive 8 out of 8, which I need it for the sake of credibility, which I kind of lost a few weeks ago, but for the sake of credibility, just please give me an 8 out of 8, please. So kicking things off, we have the Rabbitohs taking on the Panthers, starting with league position. The Rabbitohs are at the bottom of the ladder in 17th, while the Panthers are near the top in 3rd. In terms of recent form, the Rabbitohs have won 1, lost 4, and the Panthers have won 4, lost 1. For percentage stats, the Rabbitohs have a 14% win rate, 76% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 86.4%. And on the side of the Panthers, they have a 71% win rate, 78% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 86.5%. Looking at player availability, in terms of players coming in for the Rabbitohs, there are none to really mention. Players out at the moment still include Ilias, Kenner, Latrell Mitchell, Johnston Graham, and Totola. That is a ridiculous list of key players. And on the side of the Panthers, Sorensen and Liotta are both to be confirmed on when they'll be available. So even with those guys out for the Panthers, I still think they should be in firm control. The Rabbitohs were just completely demolished against Melbourne Storm, but I do at least like the fight back that they had. One key positive for me was Jai Gray. Excellent effort from him. He looked really, really dangerous. You know, obviously a few key decision-making moments in there, like the pass off to whoever it was that kind of messed up the try opportunity. I can't remember who it was, but things like that, he'll learn. But his step, his pace, looked really dangerous. And, you know, if Latrell's going to be out for a while, plus, you know, if he doesn't even get back into the team once he's available, I think Gray looks like a very decent option to really get into that number one role, getting used to it. So I respect the fight back from the Rabbitohs, really, you know, fighting with some pride at the end of that game, but they're still far off the mark. I don't really need to talk about the Panthers too much because we all know what they're about and what they've got. The Rabbitohs just need to try and disrupt them a little bit, just jam up, have that quick defensive line speed, make Cleary and Luai have as little time as possible on the ball, especially Dylan Edwards as well. Slow down the ruck speed through the middle and they'll be in with a chance, but the Panthers for me are just too classy in all areas, so I'm going to go with the Panthers to win 13+. Next up, we have the Sea Eagles taking on the Raiders, starting with league position. The Sea Eagles sit in 4th, the Raiders sit in 10th. In terms of recent form, the Sea Eagles have won 3, drawn 1 and lost 1, and the Raiders have won 2 and lost 3. For percentage stats, the Sea Eagles have a 62% win rate, 76% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 85.5%. And on the side of the Raiders, it's a 50% win rate, but 80% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.2%. For player availability, Ben Trebojevic, Toa Sipley, Cherry Evans and Olukwatu all to miss out this week. And on the side of the Raiders, Elliot Whitehead is assumed to be back. And then you still have Horsburgh, Rapiner, Fogarty and Hosking all unavailable for selection. The Raiders, I mentioned it in my predictions video. I went with the Sharks 13+. It was just a gut feeling. And I knew that without Fogarty it would be an issue, but that was just like ridiculous. I at least gave the Raiders enough respect to put up some decent points, but like, wow, that defensively, sheesh. The Sea Eagles, I like them. They're a good attacking team, but I don't know, I just feel like there's just a lot of problems in there. So some people might just want to say 13+, but when you're without Cherry Evans, and of course we'll have to see, you know, as a time of recording, I don't really know what his punishment is. I don't know what, you know, how many game bans he's going to get. But the Sea Eagles in attack will be fine, but I still think there's a few holes in there. Not enough that the Raiders right now, especially without Fogarty, is going to like do enough to beat the Sea Eagles. So I think they'll be fairly comfortable. But I'm not going to count out the Raiders because I think They've still got individuals, especially in the forward pack, very strong in the middle. And, looking at what Ethan Strange has done this season, I always feel like there'll be a game where he might put everything on his shoulders and really start taking on the line, cause some issues, and have a little bit more control over the kicking game, and just he'll have one of those kind of coming of age games, and he's already had a few so far this season, to be fair. Like, I think the Titans was one of them. Of course, the Tigers was another one, but it's a good test for him, and a good test for the next few weeks while Fogarty's out to really have to step up and start carrying things. But yeah, I think Seagulls should be fine. I don't think the Raiders will be tremendously far off, but I'm just going to go with the Seagulls to win 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Broncos taking on the Roosters, starting with league position. Broncos sit in 5th, Roosters sit in 7th. In terms of recent form, the Broncos have won 4, lost 1, and the Roosters have won 2, lost 3. For percentage stats, the Broncos have a 62% win rate, 75% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.3%. On the side of the Roosters, they have a 50% win rate, 80% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 87.9%. For player availability, Ezra Mam and Selwyn Cobbo should both be back. It's not 100% confirmed, but are potentially available. We'll have to wait and see for the team list. But Victor Radley and Sandon Smith should both be available for the Roosters. And Jennings, Tupanua, Linyu, and Billy Smith all out at the moment for the Roosters. I can see, given the player availability on both sides, I think there's a lot of points to be had here. So some of the teams you could say, well, given the issues, they'll have some deficiencies in attack. I think there'll be more deficiencies in defence, and therefore I'm expecting a lot of points. I'm leaning towards the Broncos mainly because they've already had to deal with having to move players all around the spine. They've already been through that, and they've dealt with it extremely well. So I am leaning towards the Broncos at the moment. The Roosters are still a team that I don't trust. They can put in excellent performances, and individuals can really step up. Suwali, Manu, Walker can have his day, Smith at number 9. But they're all a little bit up and down at times. So I just don't fully trust the Roosters. And I think the Broncos, over the last few weeks, their consistency's been good. They've really been firing and should be okay in this game. But as I said, I think there'll be a lot of points scored. But I'll lean towards the Broncos. So I'm going to go with the Broncos to win 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Bulldogs versus the Tigers, starting with league position. The Bulldogs sit in 8th, get in Bulldogs, and the Tigers sit in 15th. In terms of recent form, the Bulldogs have won 3 and lost 2. The Tigers have won 1 and lost 4. For percentage stats, the Bulldogs have a 43% win rate, 75% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 87.1%. On the side of the Tigers, they have a 29% win rate, 78% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 87.3%. Player availability, Jacob Preston is hopefully available for the Bulldogs. Patolo, Mann and Sutton all unavailable for selection at the moment. For the Tigers, Startoa should be available for selection, and Junior Tupou and Adam Dewey, who has still been out since the 18th century, remains to be unavailable. I think the Bulldogs will be pretty comfortable in this game. I can't believe that by the end of this section, I'm about to say a list or a sequence, that's the word, a sequence of words. You guys know where this is going. You guys already know where it is. I was a little bit confident with the Tigers after their win a few weeks back, and then a somewhat decent performance. I think it was against the Dolphins, but they still lost that one. It was still an okay performance. They've just gone downhill, unfortunately. I don't think it's impossible for them to bring it back, but the Bulldogs, 3 wins in their last 5, much more improved team than they were last season. Down that left-hand side can be really, really dangerous with Burton's kicking game and Josh Adokar getting on the back of things. The Bulldogs just looking like a fairly decently efficient team right now. They're not without issues, and the Tigers, if they get some things right, if Aiden Caesar can control the game well enough, if Galvin can spot a few gaps in that defensive line, the Tigers can put up points. But just overall, the Bulldogs really starting to find a rhythm, and the Tigers just have been the Tigers over the last couple of weeks. Apologies if that offends you. But yeah, here comes the ridiculous statement. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs to win 13+. So wrong. Next up, we have the Titans taking on the Storm, starting with league position. Titans sit in 16th, Melbourne Storm sit in 2nd. For recent form, the Titans have won 1, lost 4, whereas Melbourne Storm have won 4 and lost 1. For percentage stats, the Titans have a 14% win rate, 82% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.4%. And for Melbourne Storm, they have an 86% win rate, 77% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 87.7%. For player availability, Keenan Palacia and Phil Sammy should both hopefully be available for selection. Fotuaika and Verrills are both to be confirmed on when they'll be available, and there's no Campbell or Tino Fa'asuamaleaui at the moment. On the side of Melbourne Storm, Asfa Solomona and Xavier Coates are both to be confirmed on when they'll be available. Xavier Coates, I think, is going to be a few weeks, maybe months. It's a hamstring, from what I recall, and Asfa Solomona is probably back next week. There's no Jonah Pizzette or Kami Kamitha to be selected this week either for usual players. I know Pizzette is normally behind Hughes and Munster anyway. The Titans have been, been all right with their attacking performances over the last couple of weeks. The start to their attacking performances were awful. I had no trust in them. I thought that on paper they'd be decent, but yeah, they were nowhere near. And then suddenly they just started putting these points up. So fair play to them. I do trust them to put up some points. Melbourne Storm finally broke that duck and had a 13-plus win. I finally backed them to do it. I understood that, even against a struggling Rabbitohs team, that they could have made it a close one. And towards the end of the game, I was thinking, they're about to make it a close one. But, they finally got it done and were completely comfortable in that game. I think the Titans will throw up a few moments off the cuff and get that Storm defensive line out of shape, because when teams seem to do that, when they get a second phase in the tackle, the Melbourne Storm defensive line can get thrown out of shape very easily, and they get out of shape, and then whoever they put in to replace Xavier Coates, if his decision making isn't on point, they get that line out of shape. He stepped up a bit too far. Then they have the fullback not really knowing where to look or where to go, and there's a little bit too much leverage to one side. There's a grubber kick in behind, and that's a repeat set, and again and again and again. Or there's a try on the back end of it. And that's how I think if the Titans are going to do anything in this game, that's how I think it's going to happen. Just offloading, getting repeat sets, and just attacking that left-hand side defensively of the Melbourne Storm with Xavier Coates not available. And especially given his ability to win the aerial battles, that's something they could exploit. I do think Melbourne Storm will still be fine. I know I've mentioned a lot of things there for the Titans. Melbourne Storm will still be fine. I think they'll be solid through the middle. The kicking game of Jerome Hughes will be perfectly fine, and his running game, is one of the most informed players in the league right now. Cameron Munster, I still want to see a little bit more from him, because even though he's a little bit late to the party this season, performance-wise, I want to see a little bit more. But I'm sure over the next couple of weeks we'll get that as we're sort of ramping up towards Origin. We'll start to get a much more refined and Cameron Munster-looking Cameron Munster. Great analysis. But yeah, I think Melbourne Storm should be comfortable in this game, but I will say I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans make it somewhat competitive. I think there's a world in which they could make that happen. But I'm going to go with Melbourne Storm to win, 13+. Next up, we have the Cowboys taking on the Dolphins. Starting with league position, the Cowboys are in 9th, Dolphins in 6th. In terms of recent form, the Cowboys have won 1 and lost 4. The Dolphins have won 3 and lost 2. For percentage stats, the Cowboys have a 50% win rate, 76% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88%. And for the Dolphins, they have a 57% win rate, 80% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 89.1%. For player availability, Helam Lukey is expected to be back. Hopefully he is. And Murray Taulagi is still a huge question mark. I saw somewhere that he might be available, and if not, it would be the week after. But I'm not entirely sure. And Tom Chester is unfortunately out at the moment. For the Dolphins, Lemuelu and Milford, both expected. Farnworth, I don't think would be back until next week. On the injury list, it did say he'd be available, but I think it was mentioned somewhere that he won't play. The Bromwich brothers are both to be confirmed on when they'll be available. There's no Tabai Fidel or Kafusi or Flegler. So there's a few issues with the forward pack of the Dolphins and a few key players, of course, including Tabai Fidel. I think Fuller in his place is putting some really solid performances, and the Dolphins have looked good. Still positive in the last 5 games. I just think with the deficiencies, I'm expecting a Cowboys bounce back at some point. They will have to keep working some things out in the back line with losing Labour and then having to bring in Chester, and now there's no Chester. There's a chance for someone else to come in and really prove themselves, but I think the rest of the team really needs to step up. As I sort of said to about Cameron Munster, I want to see more from Scott Drinkwater. I want to see more from Tom Dearden. I need to see more from those guys, but I think the forward pack of the Cowboys is always really strong week in, week out, and this is a much weaker Dolphins forward pack, so it's a great chance to really set the tone and win that battle in the middle third of the pitch, and to get that quick play the ball speed. And Reece Robson off the back of that can really start to dominate. The Cowboys haven't been great, but I still kind of see, just based on personnel that's available, I'm leaning towards them. But this is another one that I have to preface. I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins win this one. But just based purely on personnel, Dolphins, based on their performances, can be okay, but they're dealing with still a few too many players out, and the Cowboys, even given their form, can turn it around at some point. So based on those factors, I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win, but 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Knights taking on the Warriors, starting with league position. The Knights sit in 13th, the Warriors sit in 12th. In terms of recent form, the Knights have won 2 and lost 3, and the Warriors have won 2, drawn 1 and lost 2. In terms of percentage stats, the Knights have a 38% win rate, 79% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 89%. On the side of the Warriors, they also have a 38% win rate, 81% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.8%. In terms of player availability, for the Knights, Jack Hetherington is the only one that would be expected to be up for selection. And in terms of all these players that are to be confirmed, that includes Marju, Saifiti, Cartwright, Jenkins, and Frizzell, all to be confirmed, and of course, no Kalen Ponga. For the Warriors, this list is ridiculous. There's no one expected back in, but out includes Lussick, Harris DeVita, Tavanga, Afoa, Niokore, Capewell, and Metcalf. That's ridiculous. So, for me, this is very simple. Over the last 2 weeks, the performance has been poor from Warriors. The Warriors' performance has been really, really poor. Sometimes there's no structure on the last tackle. They're pinned back very easily, and there's not a lot of yardage coming out the back. They're losing the battle through the middle through the ruck speed as well. They're getting slowed down. Opened up too easily in defence. Giving away too many penalties. Also too many errors on their own side. So that's one big issue. The Knights haven't been great, but at least their up and down performances have been more sporadic over the last few weeks. And it could have easily been 3 wins and 2 losses, because you have to include that game against the Roosters in there. That was a strong performance. And the Knights last week, even without Kalen Ponga, came out with a very important win, just to kind of set the tone for this new... I mean, it's not really... You could say it's a new team in a way, but they're going to be without their key man in Kalen Ponga. But to kind of set the tone that we are to be taken seriously, it's a big win off the back there. So... The Warriors, because of the deficiencies they've got in the middle of the park, with the forward pack, so many key players missing, they do have great individuals, so I can see them putting up, a good handful of points. But given the key players they've got missing, versus the Knights, they do have some key players missing as well, but it's not nearly the same level as the Warriors. But the fact that the Warriors over the last 2 weeks have been really poor, that trend may continue. So I think the Knights could be comfortable in this game. But I don't think it's that impossible to say that the Warriors come up with a win this week and really turn things around, because they've still got Johnson, Tamari Martin, Tuivasa-Sheck, Nickel Clockstad. They've got loads of incredible players, and Fanua Blake through the middle could really dominate. So we'll have to see how that goes, but I just think based on player availability and recent form, I'm going to have to go with the Knights to win, 1 to 12 points. Finally, for this week, we have the Sharks taking on the Dragons, starting with league position. The Sharks are in first, Dragons are in 11th. In terms of recent form, the Sharks have won 4, lost 1. The Dragons have won 3 and lost 2. In terms of percentage stats, the Sharks have an 86% win rate, 79% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.6%. And for the Dragons, they have a 50% win rate, 78% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.3%. No one really to report on player player availability, you got it. On the side of the Sharks. On the side of the Dragons, Leilua is expected to be up for selection. And then you've got Suli and Ravalawa, both to be confirmed on when they'll be available. For me, this one's very simple. The Dragons have been decent, but still have too many issues for me in defence. The Sharks are just really firing in attack. And I think that trend will probably continue. I do think that there are some moments in the Sharks team where they could really sort of, take their eye off the ball and have some really strange results. We saw that about 2 years ago. We saw it a couple of times last season as well. But I just think in all areas, the Sharks are just a really efficient team. And I still see the Dragons putting up some points because, you know what, they've been alright. Based on how they were last season, major improvement. And some of the performances, they've been alright. But I just think the Sharks overall are just so clinical all over. And when they should be fully fit as well. When you've got Talakai, Katoa, Mulatalo, they've got individuals all over the park that can create moments from nothing. And the Dragons, I think, defensively still have their issues and can get thrown out of shape. The kicking game from the Sharks is very strong. And I just think they'll be clinical enough in defence as well. So they'll put up a solid number of points. But defensively, I think, will look quite sound. But the Dragons will find ways to score because Zach Lomax he's a freak at the moment. An absolute freak. But I'm going to go with the Sharks to win. 1-12 points. So that's going to be it for my predictions this week. Just to quickly recap, I'm going to take the Panthers 13+, Seagulls and Broncos 1-12, Bulldogs and Melbourne Storm 13+, then the Cowboys, Knights and Sharks all to win by 1-12 points. In terms of win confidence, I'm at about 85%. I think most of these should be completely fine. There's very few that would kind of be thrown up the other way. In terms of margin confidence, I'm also about 85% as well. I think most of those are pretty reasonable. I think there's a chance the Sharks could make it 13+. The Seagulls, I think, could also find a way to make it 13+ as well. I don't know. There's just a few tricky ones in there. Melbourne Storm, of course, might go back to what they were doing and, take it right down to the end when they don't need to. But, yeah, that's my recap for this week. So that's going to be it for my NRL Round 9 predictions. If you have your own, do let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know how you got on last week. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.